Hey everyone, my name is Alaha, and I've recently joined Earlywork as their first full-time hire, leading their ops and community. For those who are not familiar with Earlywork is the home for young people creating the careers of tomorrow in tech, startups, and social impact. And if you're interested to join our Slack community to learn alongside the best founders and operators, I leave our community link invite in the chat. And now I'll pass it on to Tyan from the Canva team for their workshops.
Thank you so much, Alaha, for the wonderful introduction. And thank you everyone for being here with us today. I've seen some, joining in from 2:30, 3:30 a.m. I'm sure there's some folks on the call who are dialing in from 11 p.m. as well. So thank you all so much for making the time to be with us here today. Now, it's never easy to look for a new job, especially in the current job market. Whether you've just started your first ever job search, looking for your next role, or have been affected by the layoffs, we hope everyone walks away with a piece of advice today that will help you get closer to your dream job. Now, before we kick off, I would like to introduce our team today. So my name is Tyan, and I am a talent acquisition partner here at Canva, supporting our incredible people group. And with me here today is Mike. And Mike, give us a little wave. He is also a talent acquisition partner, supporting our amazing marketing team. And together, we're going to take you on a journey for the next hour or so. Let's also say hello to our chat team moderators, Erin, Natalia, Michael, who are standing by to answer all of the questions you may have. We encourage questions, so pop them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and we are best to answer, including picking a few key answers live at the end of the session. Now, the goal of today's session is to learn our top tips on building a standout CV and master your job search so you can get closer to your next gig. And we'll be doing this by covering the following. So we'll start off by building a standout CV, including a live demo from Mike in Canva, who is the king of creating resumes here at Canva. Then I will be covering off searching like a pro. And I can't wait to share with you the secret sauce of searching. And then Mike will be covering networking, and then we'll finish with a Q&A session at the end. Now, we do have a jam-packed session with practical job hunting tips. But before we jump right in, we would like to take a second to acknowledge folks joining us today that have been impacted by layoffs. We know that having your role made redundant can be a stressful experience, and we want to share that it is okay to pause, reflect, and grieve before you start searching. So our message to you is to be kind to yourself, and we would also like to extend this message of kindness to yourself to everyone searching for jobs, because we know how challenging that process can be. So I know you've all been waiting for this, so let's talk through how we build a standout CV. But before we dive straight in, I have a question for you all. How much time does a recruiter generally spend on one resume? Take a guess and pop your answers in the chat. 6 seconds, 8 seconds, 7 to 10, 7, 30, 5 minutes, 30 seconds. I feel like I'm in an auction right here, but 3 minutes, 8 seconds. I have to say, quite a few of you are actually really close. So the answer is less than 10 seconds. So it is stats like these that are scary for job seekers. But as recruiters, we do have a very trained eye and know exactly what we are looking for. This is our area of expertise, and we are used to scanning through hundreds of applications in our day-to-day job. But don't let this discourage you. This is just a puzzle that you need to solve to make sure you stand out from the crowds. So what this really means for you is to really craft your CV in the way that catches the attention of the audience and intrigues them as well. This shining piece of the puzzle is you when you are intentional about how you create your profile. So when you are writing your CV and designing it, you're trying to create a hook to draw in the audience so they can learn all about you. So therefore, the purpose of a CV is to get you that interview. It is essentially the bridge to get you into the recruitment process. So let's go over the basics for a moment before we even start to create a CV. So firstly, think about the target audience. Who is reading your CV? The size of the company could determine if the audience is talent acquisition, HR, general manager, or even the owner. If it's a smaller company, chances are it will most likely be a higher level leader reviewing. If it's a bigger company, it will most likely be a specialized recruiter. Also have a think about whether the company is corporate or creative. If it's somewhere like Canva, feel free to be creative, add in some color and let your personality shine. But if you're applying to a law firm or professional services, then it might be best to keep your CV a bit more corporate and formal. And a top tip of us is to mirror the tone of the voice of the company that you're applying to. And remember, it's not about you, it's about the job. The company has a vacancy, which is the job. So it's about the company and their needs. When they're looking at a CV, they're thinking, does this person have the skills and experience that we're hiring for? And how can this person help solve our problems? So we'll quickly touch on some basic do's and don'ts for what to include in your CV. So we won't talk through all of these points, but they are great things to include. We do often get questions around online profiles and whether they should be included. And our answer is yes, if they are relevant to your professional work. So if you have a professional Instagram or a LinkedIn account, absolutely share these on your CV. If it's a personal Facebook account, however, we'd say it's probably best to leave that one out. But if you have a portfolio or a website or a video cover letter, make sure you make this very prominent on your CV to generate maximum traffic and hook in your audience. Now, on the flip side, here are some things we would recommend you to exclude. We do recognize in some cultures it is customary to include quite a lot of personal detail, but we advise against doing this here, as these details should not make a difference to your application and could also pose a potential privacy risk if you share too much information and your CV gets into the wrong hands. The less is more when it comes to personal details. And to round this out, when planning out your CV, it's important to gauge the most relevant information. As we now know, a recruiter spends less than 10 seconds on your CV. So placement of information is super important to capture the attention of the reader in that point in time. Generally, what you see on the screen here is the CV hierarchy from highest to lowest priority. Now, of course, it does depend on the role that you're applying to. So if you're applying to roles where having a certain education is a key criteria, you want this to be higher up on your hierarchy list. And that's it for me now. I am handing it over to Mike to talk about how you communicate your value and your impact on your CV and start creating the CV.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tyan. Great thoughts and great advice there. Also, some really great questions coming in the chat. So I really love to see that. So when it comes to actually what to put in your CV, you want to make sure that you're communicating your value and your impact. So the way you phrase your experience is critical in ensuring you're positioning yourself as a winning candidate. So standout CVs don't simply list job responsibilities, but they demonstrate a track record of success and value and impact. So you might be a little bit stumped with this. If I ask you that question, how are you going to communicate your impact? What you can do is start asking questions around, what are my achievements or what have I done? It might make you feel a little bit stumped, but the truth is everyone has awesome achievements an amazing value to offer a company, even if you have very little work experience. And I just want to echo what Tyan said before as well. Even if you've been made redundant, you have amazing value to add a future company. So don't doubt yourself there. So to get started though, to overcome the writer's block, sometimes it's a good idea to start with a blank canvas, get a notepad out and ask yourself some of the following questions. What are you most proud of? What brought you the most personal fulfillment in your career? Maybe it was a project that you worked on. Maybe it was a university assignment. It doesn't have to be anything really major. You don't have to have intended and invented a new product or sold it for millions of dollars. And next is, what was the outcome of your hard work? What's the connection between your contribution and the outcome that was achieved? Be really intentional about the words we and us compared to me and I. You really want to be careful about how you use those words. So if you contribute to a project that was a team effort, definitely use the terms we and us and be truthful there, but make sure you differentiate where you had direct impact. As a recruiter, I want to hear what the team did, but I'm really caring about what was your impact? What deliveries did you do? What was the impact of your specific individual contribution? So make sure you do use I and me in your CV, not just we and us, as well in your interview when you're answering those questions. Next, a really golden tip for adding in your dot points under your CV is use the XYZ format. This is a famous one, but so many people forget this. It goes like this. I achieved X by doing Y with the result of Z. So for example, it goes something like this. I demonstrated a skill or a value when I did an action or some kind of verb there, and this meant the outcome, the results. When it comes to the outcome and the results, recruiters love to see data and metrics. What were the physical, like actual measurable results of what you did? How did it affect the people? How did it affect efficiency? What was the financial impact, the time impact, the performance impact? If you can put those kind of details in your CV, recruiters love it. So let's practice here. So I've got an example of an XYZ format here about event organizing. But, we see this all the time in CVs. People just list their responsibilities. So instead of this example, they might say, I was responsible for organizing events at my company. That's really dull and boring. Instead, if you put in some more detail, this is what it might sound like. I spearheaded our organization's first ever portfolio party, which was a 2-day event. This was our most successful event with over 1,000 attendees and with an event satisfaction score of 95%, our highest to date. And I'm going to share another example. I'm going to apologize for my voice too, by the way. It's kind of dying as I go on, but I should be right. Next one here is, I love this one. I achieved a 30% increase in our social audience by developing a compelling content strategy that led to a 5% increase of our online sales with a value of $35,000 in my first 6 months. So really clear, specific metrics, dollar values, timeframes in there. They are really golden. Now, I know that some of you in your early careers, or maybe you haven't yet to start your career, you're about to graduate, you may not have some of those same kind of metrics that we're delivering here, but let this be a reminder to you now. When you go into jobs, you might be just given tasks and expected to deliver those tasks, and then you don't get to see all of the metrics of the outcomes. Ask for that. You can ask your manager, if you worked on a project, what were the results? How did it impact the company? How did it impact the finances? And then take a note and record all that down in a separate computer to your work computer, maybe in your own phone notes or something like that. Record these down, so when it comes time to completing a CV, you've got all that data there. So once you've crafted your content in a way that's really articulate, it's time to format your information in the most eye-catching and captivating way possible. So format essential. Having a clear format is essential to effectively communicate what you want to portray in your CV. So make what matters most stand out first. So relevant work experience should be the first thing a recruiter can easily see. So keywords next are golden. When you're applying for a job, carefully read through the job description and find out what are the keywords that they're using, that they're looking for, and make sure your CV reflects that, where your skills and your experience aligns there. When it comes to terminology too, be careful about the differences in scope. So for instance, a really common one is, a UX designer or a UX UI designer. There's about 4 or 5 or 6 different titles that they can have on LinkedIn. could be user experience design, it could be UI, UX/UI, it could be UI. When you're applying for a job like that, read through the job description, see how that company refers to that role, and make sure that's how you refer in that keyword. So if a recruiter is filtering all the CVs from a specific keyword, you don't get filtered out. Length also is a hotly debated topic. In the US, we find there's recruiters generally like really short, succinct one-page CV. For us at Canva, we find 2 pages is a really nice sweet spot between giving enough context, enough info, and still keeping it succinct. But, if it's well formatted, if there's not too much bulk text, if it's easy to scan, even 3 or 4 pages isn't terrible either. And then when it comes to the design, similar to what Tyan's already said, try and reflect the brand that you're applying for, as well as your own personality in that sweet spot there. Make sure it is easily to scan through. Don't be afraid of white space. You don't have to cram everything together. Don't reduce the font to like size 8, so we have to squint at the CV. Keep it nice and easy to read. So when it comes to creating your CV, the best place to do it is Canva for sure. So you head to canva.com, choose your favorite resume template, and start creating. So I wanted to give you a bit of a demo run through of what it might be like to actually do that. Maybe you've used Canva before, maybe you never have, but it's free to sign up for an account. So head to canva.com. And if you want to find our CVs, the easiest way is click on templates here. And then right at the start, there's a resumes section here. You can just click on that. Or if you drop down in the business section, there is a resume button there as well. So you can see at the moment, we've got almost 10,000 different CV formats, different CV templates that you can use. So huge selection. Some of them are free. Some of them do come with our premium. But what I would do is I'd go through, pick out a few, and then narrow it down from there what you think reflects you and puts the best foot forward for the role you're applying for. So you can filter here as well. So, say like Tyan said, you want to apply for a professional services or a law firm. I would go for a corporate or professional style there. Or if you're applying for Canva, maybe you want to click a more colorful CV here. A really good thing to know with all of these CVs, if you download them as a PDF, they will all work with an applicant tracking system. That means the PDF will display fine. It means that the text in that CV is searchable by a recruiter. But what we've also done, we've been working on some Canva recommended CVs. So to find those, you just search for Canva recommended. And I can't multitask. Awesome. So you search for Canva recommended CVs. So this is just the first batch, but we have more of these CVs coming out that have been really optimized to work really well with a applicant tracking system, optimized as well for ease of use for you. So here's an example one here, and this has a 2-page CV. And then on the 3rd page, what we've done is we've worked with our talent team and we've put together some tips and tricks, some CV best practices. So while you're filling out the CV, you can have a look at some of these points here on the XYZ format, similar to what we're sharing with you now. Some of the other CVs, they will actually have these tips ingrained in the actual CV directly under the areas that they want to advise you on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to edit this CV here. So if you've never used Canva before, what I'd advise doing is make sure that you turn on the margins and show rulers and guides, because it can be easy to get a little bit lost sometimes with where you're placing stuff when you start to position things. And a really cool tip too, you can set up guidelines like this to help make sure that everything is nice and in line, and save you a lot of like really zooming in and pulling your hair out when you get things unaligned. So to do that, you just pull it from the ruler, you just drag it across there, and we can just set up these grid lines just to, if we do want to move things around, we can do that without losing track of it. So this CV here, why this is a Canva CV, recommended CV? Firstly, because we talked about keeping the main thing. So nice and clear, plenty of white space, but super easy to see straight away. What's this person doing? Account sales executive. And this is a company here. We've actually got a section for a logo here, so you can actually drop in your company's logo. We find visual identification helps people recognize and build that credibility straight away. There's also a little bio, and I think that is a good advice to have a one sentence about what the company does. But you can also hyperlink a companies to their LinkedIn page. So I think that's a good idea. So what I would do, I would go to Sandrine Logistics LinkedIn page, copy that link, and then drop in the hyperlink there. So when a recruiter clicks on your CV, they can just click to pop out to see more about the company there. So you've got your date here. This is pretty obvious, but a little pro tip, most people don't do this and recruiters will find it super helpful. Have a summary of the actual time you spent at a certain company. A lot of recruiters will click on a LinkedIn profile just to see that. So if you have that there, it's easier for a recruiter to assess how senior you are, how many years experience you have in a certain role, and assess whether you're right for the role. A few other things I'd like to point out is there's only 3 dot points. 3 dot points is enough in a lot of cases. If you're worried about, all the stuff that you wish you could put in, that you're like, oh, they're not gonna have enough info to make the right decision about me, put it in a separate link outside. So have this link here, this bio link or a portfolio link or a case study link, and put in as much information as you want in that. Because if a recruiter clicks on that, they obviously want to find out more. But keep your CV nice and concise. You don't have to tell your whole life story. Another little handy tip here, if I was creating this CV for myself, obviously I'd be changing this photo. If you have a look at this photo, it's actually quite a well-done professional photo in a studio. Not everyone has a studio and a DSLR and a professional photographer to do that. I certainly don't, but I took a photo with my phone the other day, and what I can do is I can just drag that across here. And to make that look a little bit more professional, I'm just going to crop that. You just want a headshot in your CV, in my opinion. Also, on the topic of photos, they are totally optional. Our team is really divided. I love photos and CVs. Tyan doesn't like photos and CVs. But in any case, you're not going to miss out on a job because you didn't put your photo, and you're not going to miss out on a job because you do have your photo in nearly every case. There's pros and cons, so you've got to consider that. But let me show you what I would do with this photo to make it a little bit more professional, so you can't see my office in the background, and so it matches kind of what was there before. So in Canva, we have a really super handy background remover tool. This is with Canva Pro. So if you just have a free account, you can sign up for a trial to just get used to this if you want. So background remover, that's removed the background and done an awesome job at it too. No hair out of place. I think that looks a bit awkward though, to be honest, with my head just kind of floating there. So I'm going to throw a circle behind it just to make it a bit more, I don't know, match the design of what was there before. So I'm not going to make this pixel perfect, but just to give you a quick kind of illustration. Here's my element that I've put in the circle. I'm going to move that to the back. I'll make that a little bit tidier. Obviously, if this was for real, I'd do a better job of this. Here we go, pressure's on now. I always do this. Okay, there we go. That'll do for the purpose of this illustration. Now, that color is just, I think, a Canva color. I'm going to change that to be on brand with the rest of this CV and make it match what we're doing. So to do that, I'm just going to go to my color picker, and I'm just going to select the eyedropper. Okay, that's a great color, but you can't see my face. So let's move that backward. Okay, let's move that backward. I don't know what's going on here. Bear with me here. Okay, what am I doing? Let's just move that other way while we do that again. Okay, eyedropper. Let's select that purple color. And then I'm just going to tone that down a bit because that's a bit of an intense color. Okay, cool. There we go. That took a little while to get there, but there we go. There's a nice professional kind of photo with a sweet background there. Now, if you're finished, if you're done with that, you're happy with that, obviously make sure you delete the resources page. But then when you're ready to download your CV, you might have some volunteer extra stuff at the end to kind of share there. Click the share button and click the download button. And this is really important. Just make sure when you download your CV, you download it in PDF standard. There are different options here, but you definitely don't want to have your CV in any other format. It'll just make it really difficult for the applicant tracking system. It could potentially make a recruiter think that you've got a virus in your CV. So just make sure PDF standard, then you'll be right to go, be nice and compatible with what we're doing there. So I'm going to jump out of here and I'm going to hand over to Tyan again.
Thank you so much for that awesome demo, Mike. I am so glad you're doing that because you are literally the king of Canva CVs here at Canva. Now that we have created a CV with impact, it is time to search for jobs. So before you start searching for a role, it is important to keep in mind these 3 guiding principles: to have clear objectives, to make sure that you're fishing in the right pond, quality over quantity. So let's unpack these. So before you start searching, it's really important to think about the answers to these questions, as it will help you narrow down some of the search fields we'll use later. So what are some of the common roles or job titles in your profession? Note that there can be a number of job titles to describe one profession. The style of work that you're looking for. Is it permanent, contract, or part-time? The level of seniority. Are you looking for intern, entry, associate, or senior level roles? And what skills will you be searching for? Make an assessment of your top skills and use them to search. Having an idea of what you want will help you be more productive and targeted in how you look for a new role. This might seem like a lot of work, but trust me, it will help save you time in the long run. Now, we also recommend that you're fishing in the right ponds. Are you looking for roles in the most relevant places? Are there job boards specific to your field or industry that could help you become more targeted in your approach? A top tip is to head over to Google, search for your job title and location, and then Google will pull up the most relevant job boards for you. And don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Try different job boards because not all companies post on all of the job boards out there. Now, of course, job boards are great to explore the hundreds of companies out there, but we'd also encourage you to research and create a list of companies that you would love to work for. Then simply head over to the career site and apply directly. And lastly, quality over quantity, folks. By quality, we mean applying for jobs that match your skills. And be honest with yourself and ask yourself this question: am I qualified to do this role? If not, then save your time and don't apply. If you are, great, and submit a resume that is tailored. No 2 roles are ever the same, and each job will have their own unique requirements. And here is another top tip: research the company before applying. It's much better to spend more time in research upfront, so you can spend less time on applications and interviews that leads you nowhere. And the other benefit is that if you are invited to an interview, you've already done your research, so you will be ready to go. And if you have identified your top company, be thoughtful. It's better to be patient and wait for the right role to appear that matches your experience than submitting lots of applications to the one company, as the latter can come across as if you're not quite sure what you're looking for. And lastly, leverage your network for quality referral jobs. Just as you're being intentional with creating your CV, you also want to be intentional with your job search. Right, now let's take your job search to the next level. So we are going to be revealing the secret sauce that recruiters use to find talent and how you can use this to reverse engineer that process. And this secret sauce has a very unassuming name, which is called Boolean search. Now pop in the chat. Have you ever used or come across Boolean searching? No, not yet. No. Okay, I would say like most people are no, and I was absolutely the same as well. I'd never heard of Boolean searching before I got into recruitment. But this is essentially a secret tool that we use, which we are sharing with you all today. So we use Boolean search to draw out key phrases and skills from your profiles to provide us with a list of relevant candidates for jobs. In simple terms, it's a technique which allows you to combine keywords relating to your dream job using conjunctions. Using a Boolean search can help you be more efficient and targeted when you're searching for jobs. Just as recruiters use this to find talent, you can use this to find jobs. So there are 3 key conjunctions that we use when we are in Boolean searching. If you use the word and, but key, it means the result will include all of the keywords. So in this example, if you type in administration and bookkeeping, it will bring up results with both of those words. If you type or allows you to search for something that has the possibility of including either of the keywords. So in this example, receptionist or front office manager will result in displaying results with either receptionist or front office manager, which is different to and, which is the first example. Now, if you use the word not before the search term, then it means you do not want a specific search term to appear in the results. So in this example, not junior will exclude results that contain the word junior. The parentheses or brackets allows for separation of terms, and the quotation marks allows you to search a particular phrase altogether. Now, remember in the earlier slides, we shared about being clear on the objectives in your job search. And this is where that comes in very handy. Before you're ready to do your job search or Boolean search, you want to come prepared with a list that can form the basis of your Boolean search. You want to create a list of job titles that you would like to search for, a list of companies that you'd love to work for, thinking of common job sites as well that you'd like to target, as well as creating a list of skills that you have and could apply to a new role. And also think about the locations that you'd like to work in. So you can also include states or cities as well. Now you have all of the ingredients to build out your Boolean search string, or the secret sauce, as we call it in recruitment. So this is what it looks like in action. So in the first example, by typing in this search string, open bracket office administrator or senior office administrator or administrative assistant, close bracket, the word and, open bracket, Canva or Google or ASOS, close bracket, and Australia. By putting in the search string, it effectively means that you're wanting to search the entire internet for an administration job at Canva, Google, or ASOS in Australia. These searches will open up so many other roles that you're not aware of. And a top tip, you don't have to just search by job. You can actually search keywords that are suited to you and your skill set. And this is exactly what I do when I search for candidates. I search based on skills and keywords rather than job titles. So you can do exactly the same. And look, Boolean searching can be a game of trial and error. It took me a little while to get used to it, but don't be disheartened. If you need to try a few times to try different variations to start getting the right results. Try it out and let us know how you go. And to close out searching like a pro, here is our final top tip. Once you've conducted searches and you find they are pulling up the right jobs, then please save them as job alerts. This helps you save time as the jobs are essentially finding you. So we recommend signing up to job boards using the search strings. And then also as a side note, sign up to talent communities. More and more organizations are creating talent communities, which you can sign up to receive relevant company content as well as jobs. And if you're not already, definitely sign up for Earlywork or Between Work. And now I am handing it back over to Mike to share tips on networking.
Thanks so much, Tyan. Great tips there. So definitely the power of networking is so important. I love this quote from Keith Ferrazzi. It says, "The currency of real networking is not greed, but generosity." So if we talk about our philosophy you should bring when it comes to networking, you should think about what you can offer that person as well as what they can offer you. It's important to take a long-term view of your connections. The real benefit comes from building relationships over time. You never know what the future will hold. So have a smaller number of quality connections is generally better than, vaguely knowing hundreds of people. Genuine connections create opportunities. Well, I will say, don't be afraid to connect with people on LinkedIn that you haven't yet met in person. That'll really limit your network if you do that. But try and keep them genuine. So it's important to be your authentic self. Networking is different to a CV where the focus is not so much on you, but when you're networking, everything comes back to your personal brand and who you are as a person. So a really handy tip when it comes to trying to find a job and networking, network with specialist recruiters on professional platforms. This gives you the best chance for success when it comes to your application. Recruiters are often the person who will be screening an application, and they play a major role in deciding who will progress to the interview stage or recruiter screen based on their initial CV review. So forming relationships with recruiters, even following on from an interview process, is a great way to keep an eye on the market and stay up to date with your new roles. So there's generally two different kinds of recruiters, internal and external. So I've worked as both an internal recruiter and an external recruiter. So I'll help share the differences and why you might want to connect with both, where they can add value. So first off, an internal recruiter or a talent acquisition partner. That's what myself and Tyan and the rest of our team on this call all are for Canva. So we recruit only for Canva. We're not recruiting for any other companies, but an external recruiter is a bit different. They work as a third party, usually for a recruitment agency, someone like Hayes or Robert Walters or Michael Page. The recruiter often recruits for a number of different clients, and they're constantly engaging with relevant job seekers. They match job seekers to roles that their clients are looking to fill. It's usually completely free for you to work with a recruiter, and they're incentivized to help you get a job. So there's benefits to networking with both categories of recruiters. So I'd highly recommend you do that. Here's a few of the benefits to having some great relationships in your network with recruiters. First off is the intimate knowledge of your industry. They can really help you see where the trends are going in that industry, which companies might be about to go on a bit of a hiring surge. They'll often have their finger on the pulse when it comes to, in the startups world, who's looking for investment, who's just gone through another series of funding. They've got strong relationships with industry leaders. They're also a really good person to get salary advice from. There is some thoughts around that a recruiter is trying to usually screw you down and get you as cheap as possible. That's definitely not the case. A recruiter really wants to help you land the job. It's their job to fill these positions. So when it comes to salary, they want to give you open and honest feedback usually and help you find out where you're best positioned if you're not sure about salary. If you know already, you've done your market research, you've interviewed at different companies, you've got your finger on the pulse there, then that is fine. Stick strong to your guns if you need to do that. But they are someone that generally you can lean on and ask for help around that salary discussion. A recruiter also, at this point here, access to off-market jobs. So if you're just looking for jobs and applying for jobs through LinkedIn and job boards, then there's actually, over a week-long process that you're waiting for to kick off before that job goes live, before you apply. Whereas us in talent acquisition or recruiters that are close with their clients, we will usually know well in advance that a role's about to go live, that someone's going to be hiring for a team. So we will often set up pre-screening interviews before a role is advertised because we know that there's something coming down the track. So we want to be aware for that. So having access to those recruiters, you can kind of sometimes initiate those conversations early. And definitely a recruiter is going to be wanting to advocate for you behind the scenes. So if you form a really strong relationship with that recruiter, then I've seen time and time again where they are actually the ones who are helping that client or that hiring manager to make the decision and to make that offer. They can kind of talk through some of the pros and cons of your experience and whether that is a good fit. So how do you actually connect with recruiters? How do you find them? So if you want to find an internal recruiter, easiest way is you go to that company page. For instance, if you go to Canva, then you click on the people section here. And then under that, you search for specific titles like recruiter or talent acquisition specialist or head of talent or recruitment consultant or HR manager or recruitment manager, things like that. I would usually advise against sending a really generic email request or connection request. When you see someone's name pop up on a job board in LinkedIn, for instance, there's usually like a pop-up that says, send this person an email, and it'll give you like a template for that already. My advice is don't use that template. I'm sure our whole team get hundreds of those exactly the same templated email responses. You're very unlikely to get a good response from doing that. Instead, try and find a point of connection, maybe a university alumni or a second connection or shared interest, and try and personalize your approach there. To find external recruiters, search for your job field, so recruiters in your city, on Google, or search for recruitment consultant and then specify your job or your field on LinkedIn. You can also use Boolean searching for this if you want to take your search up a notch. External recruiters often will have their email or phone number on the employer's website, so it's usually really easy to contact them. So reach out over email, or if you want to be even more memorable, pick up the phone and say hello. It's a great idea. And if you have your elevator pitch ready for this, you can make a really standout impression straight away. Next point is connect with peers and leaders in your field. In recruitment, we have a saying that goes, great people know great people. It's also a great idea. So when you connect with great people, you're able to form these relationships where you can collaborate with them, build strong relationships, and down the track, they may even refer you for jobs or opportunities that they know about. So when trying to leverage these relationships, a good idea, a handy tip, I think, is to ask for specific feedback. You'll be amazed at how much people love sharing their advice, sharing their opinion on things. So if you make them feel like you actually value what they have to say, they're more inclined to respond. They're more inclined to engage with you and give you some helpful tips there. So how to start connecting and where to start? Obviously, LinkedIn is the largest global professional networking website, and finding relevant people in the industry to connect with is really important, but don't limit yourself purely to LinkedIn. Have a look at other pages like Facebook has specific industry groups or Slack groups. As well, LinkedIn also has a groups function that you can check out as well. But I would say, online networking is great, but there is, nothing quite like meeting someone face to face and actually having a meaningful conversation in real life. So consider, as things open up, going to networking events. Look at meetup.com and have a look at what's happening in your city. Look for conferences and events that are happening in your industry. So again, practice your elevator pitch on this. And Tyan mentioned this already, but a golden tip, if you're applying for a job, make sure you ask for a referral if you have a contact who works in that company. I cannot overemphasize this. I've seen the way different recruitment teams work, I've seen it where the referrals are extremely elevated in the process. That's because there's a level of credibility there. There's also a level of accountability for the recruiter to make sure they do a good job screening that applicant, because there's someone who referred them that works there that can send them a message and check on their application. There's also an incentive for the referrer. They will often, in a lot of companies, get a bonus for making that referral if they're successfully hired. Okay, now moving on to a little bit of fine tweaking your LinkedIn. So with LinkedIn being the #1 networking site, how do you stand out and how do you level up? Not just so people will connect with you, but you want to be searchable and found by recruiters. Tyan mentioned how she does this Boolean searching on there. We are not just posting jobs and waiting for your applications to come through. Most recruitment teams are actively in the market searching for people, trying to find on keywords, and LinkedIn is a search engine. So when it comes to having your page as a search engine, you want to rank by having keywords. So definitely focus on your tagline. That's the first thing the keyword's going to search. So if you can see here, here's a great example from Debbie. She's got community stories, Canva, diversity, inclusion advocate, content, social strategy, communication, writing and editing. That's a lot of keywords in her title straight away. So I guarantee you, if you're going to be searching for a community stories or a content creator or a communications expert, she's going to come up really loud and clear in that site, in that search that you do. A lot of people try and get really creative with that tagline, which is totally fine. But if you are searching for a job, make sure it's those keywords are in that tagline. Next, I would really like to highlight the featured section. Again, Debbie's done a great job of this. If you click onto her LinkedIn, you can see straight away, you can get a really clear picture of who she is, what she's all about. She's done some videos, she's written some articles, she's done some posts here. So whatever it is that you do, I would highly recommend having a featured section in there. That doesn't actually have to be all your work. You can share articles related to your industry, your expertise that someone else has written, but that can still show up in your featured section and help you stand out. Definitely, if you have a portfolio or a website, put it there as well. Next point is utilize LinkedIn's rich media. So you can add videos and pictures and links, even under your work experience. So if you achieve some great results at your previous company, maybe a campaign that you ran that had a really great video result, maybe it was a TVC or whatever the case might be, you can link that directly underneath here. And after rich media, skills section is huge. Again, this helps you rank in the algorithm, in the search engine. Make sure you have your skills there. There are a lot of roles where the title changes so much. Think about a developer. Your title could be developer, engineer, front-end engineer, full stack developer. Like there's just no end of titles. So often when recruiters are searching, instead, we'll search for the specific keyword of the technology maybe that we're looking for. So that could be, we could be searching for a React developer. So we might search in the skills section for React.js or whatever that might be. So make sure you add in your skills, update your skills. The chances are you probably haven't updated them for a while. And finally, the bio, that's a great point as well to add in those keywords. You can add in a huge amount of content there. As you can see in this example with Debbie, at a first point, you can only see 3 lines. So you can actually add in paragraphs and paragraphs of kind of SEO content that's really only for the search engine, because the chances are it's not that likely someone's going to read your whole bio if it is quite long. But those are my top tips for helping your LinkedIn stand out. But if you want to go a level further, is you can start developing and crafting your personal brand, because this is what people remember when they click on your profile. So your personal brand is made up of the qualities, characteristics, and values that you express on your profile and the content you post and share and interact with. So personal brand, it's nothing to do with trying to be, an Instagram influencer. It's more about who people know you as. What do people go to you for? What are you the expert in? So to develop your personal brand, one of the best ways to do this is create content. I'm a huge advocate for this because really it has the ability to help educate and inspire people that you have never met, that you never will meet, but your content has the ability to impact them in a positive way. It also showcases your expertise almost better than anything else that I know of. So if you want to create a standout LinkedIn profile, make yourself easy to find, make yourself the go-to, create content. But if you're not confident in creating that content, whether that's video or written, that's okay. You can start off just by meaningfully commenting and engaging with other experts' contents. So find industry leaders, thought leaders, find some of their posts and comment on what they're interacting and share your thoughts, share your opinion, and then maybe even reshare what they're saying with your slant or your opinion on that. So you can be a bit of a content curator and still build that personal brand. So down the line, I think ultimately you do want to start creating some of that content, but you can do that right now. So interaction time, I'd love to hear your opinion here. Who would you rather engage with? This is profile number 1, and this is LinkedIn profile number 2. So say both of these LinkedIn profiles send you a connection request. Who are you going to be more likely to accept the LinkedIn request from? And who are you going to be more likely to ignore or reject that request from? Profile number 1 or profile number 2? We've made them anonymous for privacy reasons, but one is an IT recruiter in Sydney. One is a customer success lead. I'm hearing some interesting answers. Yeah, fantastic. I think that's pretty across the board. Number 1. Personally, I get a little bit skeptical when I see a profile like this. LinkedIn's pretty good when it comes to, bot profiles. I know Twitter has a lot of bot profiles, but I still think, is this the real person? Are they trying to scam me? What's going on? I get skeptical. I can't see much about the person, but here you can see straight up who the person is, what they're all about, what they're passionate about, what their experience is. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think, yeah, LinkedIn is, awesome. Great post there. And here's just a really quick snapshot of a great example. Again, Jenny Rogerson, our head of people at Canva. She's got a really standout profile. So I'll give a quick little squiz at that before we jump into some question time. So if you do have any questions, then definitely drop them in now because we'll move to them in a moment. Sorry, this video is just taking a little while to load there. But Jenny Rogerson, if you do want a good example of who to look at and whose profile to check out, then definitely check out Jenny's. And I might just skip that video, but moving on to question time. So I think Michael was going to share some questions and then we'll do our best to respond to some of those questions, if that's cool.
Yeah, awesome. So the first question is for Tyan. So it's, I'm applying as a graphic designer to a bank. Should I add color or just say it's simple as easy to read kind of resume?
Thank you, Michael. That is a good question. So you're a creative professional, but applying to more professional environments. I would personally stay more on the professional side. But if you have a link to your portfolio, I would link that into your resume and have it in a very prominent space. Probably at the very top of your resume so that you can still be professional, but then still show off your creative side. Something that also really stands out for me, and if can show your creative side as well, is actually having a video, like a short 30-second video introduction that you can create and have that linked to your profile as well. In the time that I've been at Canva, I've screened thousands of resumes, and I've probably only come across 5 resumes or 5 applications that have actually used a video introduction of themselves as a supplement to their CV. And I've always been like, oh my gosh, like this is like really amazing that this person has taken the time to actually create a video and make it very targeted. And there has been one person out of the 5 that was actually successful with a role here at Canva. Not just necessarily because of the video, but it did help them make them stand out with the application. So hopefully it answers the question.
Yeah, awesome answer. I guess you kind of already are. Yeah, sure, go, Mike.
I would 100% agree with Tyan there. I just saw a question on how do you attach a video. We've done a whole webinar on this that you can find later, but really quickly, I didn't actually share this in the video before, but if you go to that CV, exactly the same if you had a case study in like a presentation format, click present and then click present and record, and straight within Canva, you can go to a recording studio and straight up here, you're recording a video CV or a video cover letter. You can talk to something or you can just have that directly in there. That's my 2 cents. Sorry, back to you, Michael.
No, awesome. I mean, I love watching the video templates you showed earlier. That was very insightful. Actually, the next question is also for Tyan. I think you kind of answered this one already, but it's, do recruiters really care about the showier CV formats?
Yeah, I think we've answered this one throughout. So again, it's very subjective. For me, I'm not really too bothered about whether your CV is showy or not, because personally, when I apply to Canva, I actually apply into an Arial a Word doc, Arial 10, which is super boring, but I wrote a very detailed cover letter alongside my CV. So to answer your question from my perspective, you can create a more showy CV, but at the end of the day, as long as you've got these skills, the impact that you've had in your previous roles, then I think that's the most important. Having said that, I do really appreciate it though if people are, quite clearly application or a CV in Canva. I do notice that, and it is very much appreciated. As long as you don't go overboard with the showy in an event, sometimes I see resumes and they're quite hard to follow because they try to put too many things into the showy resume. So I think a balance is fine. Mike, you might want to add your 2 cents to this one. Feel free to add in.
Yeah, great call. It does ultimately is the content, but I would say it does depend on industry too. I recruit for marketing and sometimes design as well. For a marketing CV, or especially for a design CV, I would say your CV really is your first interaction with showing how you design something on a page in a document format. So it doesn't need to be showy. Like even if you're applying at a law firm or something, it doesn't need to be bright and colorful and crazy, but you're still showing your design skills in how you set up that CV in marketing. I would say definitely, and you're showing your experience, you're showing how you're marketing to the company. So if you're applying for a company like Canva that is very bright, creative, in a kind of creative kind of role, I would highly suggest channel your creativity if you're in a creative profession into that CV, and definitely keep Tyan's points to mind. Make sure it's easy to read, easy to see. You don't want crazy colors. That means the recruiter can't actually clearly see what you're trying to say.
Awesome answer, guys. The next one's for you, Mike. It's how useful is a profile summary section or soft skills list to a recruiter on a CV?
Great question. Summary, I don't know. I find them often pointless unless there's a need to do a bit of a disclaimer. Some fewer and fewer people are writing cover letters. Even fewer recruiters are actually reading them. So I think that's why we're suggesting these more innovative ways like videos. But I think when it comes to that summary section, unless you need to explain something that you can't explain in your work experience, you can leave that out. An example where you might want to put that in, if you're changing industries or you're changing kind of role specialties slightly, you're trying to crack into a new way, you might want to put a bit of info there to explain, give a bit of context to why you're applying for this role. And soft skills are a hard one. Again, you can write as many soft skills down as you want on a CV. You can write that you're a great communicator, that you're an empathetic leader, that you're a strategic thinker. But the reality is it's a static PDF document. There's no way to prove that. What I would suggest, if you really want to demonstrate some of those soft skills, is try and connect on a human level. Try and do something like a video, or try and link some of your work or demonstrate where you've actually demonstrated those soft skills, because you should have them in there, but it's not really credible though. You can't really prove that, where you can with, XYZ format data with clear metrics.
Awesome. This is quite a long one, so I'll read it out as is because it's written really well. How do you balance between being succinct and the desire to include a good amount of detail on your CV? This is my biggest struggle. I constantly think that each bullet point I write is super important and relevant to the job and I'm applying to. There's virtually no compromise to remove a certain bullet point, otherwise the job feels incomplete. I'll pose that one to you, Mike, if you've got time.
Yeah, great question. And it is a really tough challenge. What I would say is maybe set up a couple of different CVs. And actually that was a point that we didn't share. The first CV you want to have is your everything over the top 6-page CV with just every single dot point in that you could possibly think about your experience, every single skill software that you've ever used, all of that stuff in there. And then you can kind of take that as your base CV and then be ruthless in chopping out everything that's not relevant to the job you're applying for. So if you are looking at that kind of default CV of everything that you've got in your experience, and then you're looking at the job description, I would literally go through and delete every single thing that doesn't directly relate in that job description, because the recruiter doesn't care. They don't care about what you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago. They don't care what achievements you achieved outside of what they're recruiting for. When a talent acquisition partner or recruiter is in that screening zone, like, you got to understand our mentality is we're looking at a software system that has sometimes hundreds of applicants, and we're literally just going CV. We're going next. We're going yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. We're in that very focused, laser focused mentality. So you're thinking about what Tyan said, 10 seconds. Are they going to see that you're the best fit for the role in 10 seconds? Nothing else matters. So don't worry if you put only 3 dot points and you're missing out 90% of what you're actually doing in your work. If you're directly addressing the question that they're asking is, who's the best person for this role? Hopefully that answers the question. And T, if you wanted to add anything, or Michael, if you want to ask any other questions.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like you mentioned, obviously using the job description. So what I would recommend is literally use the job description as a checklist for what to include in your resume. Like Mike says, we're basically checking to see whether you have the skills and experience that we're looking for. And the way we do that is by scanning for the keywords. On the point of the summary, I don't mind the summary. I think, Sarah, you've had the advice from a recruiter to use the summary section. I've also given that advice, and that's what I've used myself as well. So again, it probably is a bit subjective there as well. As long as the summary isn't, like a 2-paragraph, 2 paragraphs that takes up like half of your page. I think it needs to be short, sharp, and succinct, and you can have it in bullet points as well. I think that actually helps really nicely to sort of break up the space as well.
Awesome. And the final question, I guess, will be for our CV specialist, Mike. It's regarding our Canva templates. So will a Canva resume template be readable on hiring ATS systems by other companies? That's the final question.
Yeah, great question. Definitely, they definitely will be. There's a lot of kind of misconceptions in the market about how ATSs and artificial intelligence and machines are all kind of auto rejecting and all of this kind of stuff. Quick little context on how this actually works. When you save your CV as a PDF format, the text is searchable. So when you upload it to an applicant tracking system, what that applicant tracking system will do is it will scrape your CV for every single word that you have in there. So all of those keywords, all of those career titles, your phone number, your email address, things like that. So, as long as you're downloading it in the right format, an applicant tracking system will be able to scrape all that data from your CV, and it will be able to present the PDF document in its original form easily, 100% across every applicant tracking system that I know. When it comes to some applicant tracking system that can be a little bit funny is ATSs will often try and pass all of the info from a CV and then represent it in a consistent format to make recruiters' jobs a bit easier. So they're not looking at different formats every time. They're looking at the exact same format every single time. Some CV formats don't work as well with that. But to be honest, I don't know any recruitment team that relies on that scraped ATS represented CV, because it never works 100%. It's never consistent. People have been using different formats of CV, whether that's in Word and you're using tables or Canva. It never works very well. So every recruiter I know will actually look at the PDF document of your CV. So it's not something you need to be super concerned about. If you are worried, you can go into Canva and pick some of those. As I mentioned, the Canva recommended CVs, they've been optimized to work even nicer with ATSs. Or you can choose a CV format in Canva that's a single column without a margin and extra info in the side. Sometimes that can work a little bit better. But to be honest, it's not something you need to stress about. If anything, just double check when you're going through an application process. Make sure that your email address, your phone number, and your most recent work experience are all kind of importing correctly. There's usually a way for you to manually input that if it gives you the option to automatically scrape from your CV or do it manually. If you're concerned, just do it that way.
Cool. I think we will move on to just some closing remarks. So first of all, thank you for all of your questions. And after today's webinar, we are very excited to share an interactive resource guide with you that will empower you to take on your next job search confidently. It is interactive and full of lots of demos, recorded examples, and video messages from our team as well. You'll receive this within 1 to 2 days after the webinar via the email that you have registered with. I want to say thank you so much for joining us. We hope you found this informative and insightful. And I do believe I am just passing it back over to Aleha for some final remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Tan, Mike, and the Canva team for partnering with us on today's helpful presentation. For those who are asking for recording, we will upload it in our Earlywork Knowledge Hub. And if you're interested in our other events in the future, please join our Slack community of thousands of operators and founders, which I'll leave in the link below. Have a great night. Take care, everyone.